have you seen those videos, those clips on social media of dogs pressing the buttons, right? And then it's like a very like AI, recorded voice, like treat, yes, potty. Okay, I can't imitate that, but anyhow, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Maybe Bunny the talking dog having eerily human conversation with her mom. Well, as it turns out, dogs may actually understand words, meaning they're not just reacting to human beings or picking up on their cues as we may have thought before. New research reveals that our furry friends can grasp specific words from soundboards, those buttons, and respond accordingly. Let's find out if we're going to be able to have full-fledged conversations with our dogs in the near future. We have invited Professor Federico Rossano, Associate Professor in the Department of Cognitive Science at the University of California, San Diego, UC San Diego. So, hi, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, so first of all, can you introduce your recent study that suggests that dogs can indeed understand specific words from these soundboard buttons rather than just kind of like reacting to their owners' like body language or cues?
Yeah, so when people started using buttons, one of the concern was that maybe the dogs were not reacting to the actual words. They were just picking up on what the owner was doing behaviorally. Like if the owner is going towards the door, putting on their shoes and so on, after they push a button outside, maybe that's what they're picking up on while they're responding. So we wanted to test whether dogs actually pay attention to words. And we were interested in a specific set of words that is not the traditional words that usually dogs are tested on. So normally we know that dogs can pick up on commands like sit, fetch, things like that. And we know that some dogs have the ability to pick up on name of objects, like names of toys or artifacts. But that's also already a very difficult skill. So what we tried to do was we sent experimenters into people's homes. We had one experimenter cover the button so that we wouldn't know exactly where the button pressed. And the experimenter that would push them was also wearing headphones so that they wouldn't not even be able to hear the sound coming out of the button. And the owner would be in a separate room. So the experimenter with the headphones on and not being able to know what they're pressing would just push a button and just stand there looking at the dog. And then the dog would ideally respond and do something. And we had then other researchers that could not hear the sounds either, so they were just watching the videos, track the behaviors, and basically identify or sort of try to figure out what is it that the dog is orienting to. We did it in particular for concepts related to outside, so like going outside, concepts related with playing, and concepts related with food. And the idea was if you push a button that says play,
yes,
would the dog go looking for a toy and come back to you? Or would the dog go towards the door to go outside? Or would the dog, let's say, go look for food or do anything else? So the good news is that the dog actually produced behaviors that were very much in line with the word that was heard through the buttons. So if you say play, the dog would go looking for a toy and come back to you. If you push outside, they would go towards the door. If you push food, not all of them were great at this. Food was a little more problematic, but many of them would still go looking for food, maybe near the fridge or where you keep your food.
Yes.
The other thing we did was, the important thing about this was that the experimenter could not give any behavioral cue, right? Because the experimenter did not know what they were pressing and they could not hear what they were pressing.
Right.
The second thing we did was we had the owners now just say the word and see what the dog would do. And then we had the owner press the button with the same word and see what the dog would do in different times, of course. And luckily for us, what we find is that the response of the dog was very much the same. So whether you say it or whether you actually push the button, the response that the dog has is the same, which is also the same as what they had when the experimenter pushed it. So to summarize it, these dogs that are trained with buttons appear to understand, at least to the degree that you can say you understand a word if you produce the appropriate behavior next. They seem to understand the words that they're using, at least some of them. And they pay attention specifically to the words and not just to the behaviors of the humans. And that's good news for us, because it means that maybe if they understand it, then maybe when they use it, they also know what they're doing with them.
Well, that is fascinating, the research that you have conducted. So looking at the ability of a dog to process language. So are you saying that they are able to really listen to a word, to process it, and then, I guess, by their action, show that they're comprehending what they have heard?
Yes, and we're not the first lab to kind of make that point. I mean, there's previous research showing that there were individual dogs that could do this.
Yes.
So, there's 3-4 papers saying there's one dog here that can do it, there's one dog there that can do it. I think anybody who has a dog think that they understand quite a few words, and indeed, most owners would know that their dogs understand them to some degree. But as I said, the doubt was always, is it just the sound? Is it just the word? Or is it the word plus, all the behaviors that you do to kind of help them make sense of it? So the finding is just the word can have that effect without any behavioral cue that you can produce associated with it. And as I said, it's sort of a first step towards being able to assess, can one day have conversations with them? Can they actually ask us something, or is it just like they understand us, which, is good news anyway.
Yes. Absolutely. I mean, whether it's one way or two ways, the fact that there's like actual communication going on, I think is amazing. And I'm glad that your research is actually proving this. So if we look at the limitations, though, of the study in understanding how much they actually do understand through sound words, for example, I mean, some people might say, well, couldn't their responses be influenced by factors other than language? Maybe the tone, the environmental context, because obviously if they're in their comfort zone, their own home, maybe they're picking up on something real subtle, versus if they're like in a kind of a, sterile, neutral environment.
That's a great point. And indeed, that's one of the reasons why we are trying to run the study in people's homes rather than bringing the dog into the lab. But again, you can imagine any one of us, once we go to the doctor, we might feel a little uncomfortable being in a sterile environment that is not as comfortable as home. It doesn't mean that we can't say things or we can't do things. It's just that there's an additional stressor. So there's no doubt that being home helps. Just like, for a child, interacting with a parent might be a little easier than interacting with strangers. But the experiment was especially designed having an experimenter that the dog had never met come into the house for like 1 hour, do the study, and then get out. So it's not like somebody that you have seen before. It's not somebody that you have any history with. And it was important because, of course, if we could do this, it means that in the future we could do more studies in which experimenters can actually go visit dog owners and conduct studies and see, if you tell me that your dog understands this, and that, and they can do X and Y, can we actually test it? And I think it's important because what we're trying to do as a bigger project is this big citizen science project, where basically people home are training their dogs to use the soundboards to communicate with them. And if we can, assess to what degree when they tell us my dog understands X and Y, then when you go test, is this reliable or not, can also give us a little bit more hope that citizen science is a valuable tool to do research and not just, some kind of side thing that people do to create additional engagement. So I'm very hopeful.
Yes. Well, looking ahead, might some of the next steps be in trying to understand how dogs communicate, even using soundboards or not? Do you have any plans for further experimentation to just see how much they really do understand, if they can communicate back to us?
So the good news is we've already done more studies than have come out. So we have papers under review. So I can already give you some hint of what some of the findings are. And of course, we have more research coming out. So 2 studies that we've done that are currently under review. So as I said, the first study was like, do they understand the words when you push them? So do they comprehend the words? Now, the next question, of course, is like, well, then can they actively push a specific button that would be contextually appropriate. So the kind of button that you need in that specific case to get that specific thing.
Yes.
And that's the kind of test that we did. And while not everybody is equally good, some of them definitely can.
Yes.
Which tells you that, they're able to sort of select among other buttons the appropriate one to ask, for example, for help, right? And so that's very valuable because it tells us that they can intentionally select buttons. They're not just spamming the soundboard. They're not just pushing buttons randomly just to get your attention. The other thing, which you actually mentioned at the beginning of the interview, some people have seen some of these dogs like Bunny pushing multiple buttons, one after the other, that sound like sentences, look like sentences. Well, the good news is we have thousands of dogs in our study. By the way, people can sign up for the study. If you look at my lab website, you can still sign up for it. And we have a few hundred dogs that actually do multiple button sequences. And our paper was trying to assess, are those sequences random? So do you just mix any kind of button, or are they systematic? So luckily for us, they're not random.
Oh, really?
They're not random.
They're not random.
So they do combine things in ways that are non-random. Of course, there might be different explanations for that, but part of the message for you is if your dog is producing 2 or 3 buttons in a sequence, they probably are trying to say something, and they seem to be definitely more orderly than not. So again, more work needs to be done, but everything points in the direction that there might be the possibility of getting to some level of kind of back and forth or two-way communication through this device, which we hope will help people connect better and feel closer even to their pets.
Absolutely. But I'm curious, Professor, maybe you might not be able to answer this one, but I'm sure we all want to believe that our dog is the cutest and prettiest and smartest in the world. But I would assume that certain breeds might be more intellectual than others, or maybe on an individual basis that, just like human beings or other species, that certain dogs might perform better or seem smarter than others?
This is a fantastic question, and you're absolutely right.
Yes.
So there's huge individual differences.
Professor?
Let me give you an example.
Okay, yes.
We have 10,000 dogs.
10,000.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
So we have 10,000 dogs. About 65 of them have more than 100 buttons that they use systematically. Some of them have 150 buttons. But the median number of buttons, which means the 50% of individuals have less than 9 buttons. You can imagine what difference it makes between the one who has 150 and the one who might have 2 or none. Some of them never learn it, right? So some of them might never get there. Now, when you ask about breed, you're also asking a fantastic question because most research that looked at dogs' understanding of language showed that border collies seem to be the better ones at this. But good news, in our study, border collies, there are some in the top 60, but they're not the most frequent breed, actually.
They're not?
They're not. No, there's others that are better than border collies at this task. You need to imagine this. This is not a task in which you need to go fetch something. This is an animal that wants to actually interact with you and wants to learn how to do things. So probably if your dog is mainly outside a watchdog or some kind of, keeping track of other animals, probably does not really care about communicating with you. But if you have a breed that is designed to actually be home and be with you and maybe to interact with you, it is more likely that breed might be a little more capable or motivated. Let's put it this way, motivated to learn and communicate with you. And you can just look at what breed is Bunny. In general, poodles are very good. Terriers are very good. There's a few others that are very good. But also there's a lot that, are mixed breed. So it doesn't need to be,
purebred,
pure breed to be purebred to be very good. The key with anything in life with learning is motivation. If you want to communicate, if you want to learn, if you're motivated because you care about doing things with your owner, then probably you will be excited about this and use it. And then there will be others that will be amazing dogs, and they're still the greatest dog in the world for you, They might not be the best at using buttons, but it's still okay, right? They're still awesome pets that you will love no matter what.
Yes. Well, thank you for going over the findings of your fascinating study and even about the findings in your other studies as well. And we wish you the best. Thank you for coming on air with us, Professor.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.